there's a reason this guy is smiling. The incredible prices being paid these days for contemporary Chinese art. A painting by the same artist recently sold for a record $5.9 million at a Sotheby's auction in London. So what is the future of Chinese contemporary art? Are the artists going to be laughing all the way to the bank, or will the market end in tears? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bloomberg Voices. I'm Stephen Engel here at the Schoeni Gallery on Old Bailey Street in central Hong Kong. Our guest today is the director of the Schoeni Gallery, Nicole Schoeni, who's celebrating the 50th anniversary of this gallery, which really launched the careers of many of today's contemporary Chinese artists. Nicole, thank you very much for coming on Bloomberg Voices. I was going to say welcome, but I'm here in your shop.
You're very welcome.
Here we are in front of Ye Minjun's sculpture, the smiling face. I guess we just talked about the record prices that was paid for the execution, one of his more famous paintings.
That's right.
What do you make of the prices now being paid for contemporary Chinese art?
What do I make of it? I think the prices, most definitely, they've exploded in the past 3 years. Some of it surprises me. Some of it is expected. I think a lot of it is basically it's everyone's effort over the past 10 years of those who were active in promoting Chinese contemporary art, whether it be museums, curators, or galleries like ourselves.
Now, it's exploded in the last few years because prior to the 90s, there was, of course, an underground art movement, but it was not really known to the outside world. What's it taken? How has it been introduced to the world, and how has a gallery such as Schoeni, which was founded by your father 15 years ago, how has that helped bring these artists to the world?
Well, I think, like you said, you know, in the early 90s, a lot of the avant-garde artists didn't have opportunity actually to show domestically because a lot of their topics were quite sensitive at the time. So a lot of you know, museums, curators, because of that kind of propaganda, but controversial topics, they started to pay a lot of attention to it, and they started to do exhibitions overseas, museum shows as well, even taking, you know, Chinese contemporary art to art fairs. So a lot of it is really because of the work which everyone has done. Other influences, of course, the economy itself. I think naturally, as an economy develops, so does the art scene parallel in terms of patrons, people who are collecting the art, and also institutions and infrastructure as well.
So it's really a combination of many things. Obviously, the stock markets have been doing really well in China and in Hong Kong and around the world, but a lot of the buyers are Westerners, aren't they?
Majority have always been Westerners since the early 90s already,
So the other factor, again, is just the availability now of these paintings. They have become aware of what's happening in China because the Chinese authorities are not as sensitive towards the controversial subjects.
That's right, And a lot of the 90s works, they've all been collected already. So, of course, the only way really to buy them these days is through auction.
Take, for example, the one that went at Sotheby's, not this one, but it was...
The execution painting.
The execution, which was highly controversial subject, really, because it based on Tiananmen Square. Do you think that helped lift the value, or that was the reason why it collected $5.9 million?
Most definitely influenced, yes,
How do you think the Chinese authorities are taking more of a laissez-faire, if you will, attitude towards such controversial subjects? I think Tiananmen Square is still a very touchy subject to the Chinese, but are you finding that the artists are able to do more, can go out on the ledge a little bit more, that the Chinese authorities are allowing it because, hey, this is a burgeoning market?
Yeah, they're definitely more liberal in terms of their creation, but I think also their subject matter have changed, which is quite important. You know, with the economy, they've started to focus more on consumerism, materialism, So the topics are less controversial, if you like, less sensitive. Yeah.
When someone comes into the gallery here, what do they normally ask you? What do they want? They know the names now, don't they? The serious buyers.
Most of them know the names, not everyone, but most of them know the names. But those names are usually what I call the wish list. Yao Mingjun, of course, is one of those artists. Just to name a few, Zhang Xiaogang, Wang Guangyi, Zheng Fanzhi. There's a certain group of artists which everyone is focused on collecting. In terms of motives of collecting, there's two different groups. One is art lovers, who buy because they love art. And then on the other side, there's the more investment, seeing art as an investment instrument.
Is it a good investment?
Yes, it is a good investment, long term, very long term. I think, 3 years ago, there was actually a margin, if you like, to get a good return on paintings. But I think these days, with these prices, that's much more difficult.
Well, tell me about the return on investment. Yao Mingjun's execution.
Yes.
Your dad sold that in the first, right from the artist, right?
He did.
How much?
Well, he bought the painting from the artist in the late, mid-90s, I believe. And then in the late 90s, he sold it to an American collector. I think it was approximately 30,000 US at the time.
30,000
US dollars.
And it just sold for 5.9 million.
Yes, and that was the original buyer at the time.
Do you find a lot of the investors are hoping, obviously they're hoping for that type of return on investment, but that's a bit unrealistic, isn't it?
I think, yeah, it is quite, these days it is very unrealistic, but if you're, starting to collect and you maybe collect a young artist, I think there is the potential, but again, long term.
What is behind the motivation now of many of the artists that you've seen? Because as we've been talking about, many toiled in obscurity up in China for many years. Now the market is booming for Chinese artists. How much of it is driven by profit, or is it still that artistic integrity that they're after? It's not bad when you're making $5.9 million on one painting.
No, most definitely not. I think you can't really blame them. I mean, these days there's so many temptations, and it's hard to actually find that balance between staying true to your artistic values and sort of adhering to what the market demands. So I think it's very difficult, especially for the younger artists, to keep that balance, not to be too tempted by the commercial side of the market.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, and let's go look at some of the art.
Okay.
We're in an art gallery. We'll be right back in 2 minutes' time. Our guest, Schoeni of the Schoeni Gallery.